What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to look at a mindset, one that people age with and one that I've seen in so many different situations. And I want to talk about a story and a couple of different stories, actually, of people that I've seen age with this mindset and then the opposite to it. And the goal here is just to make people a little more aware, to make you more aware of how you think right now can impact you down the road and how that can really build on itself in a lot of ways. And before I get into it, I must say that I have my back to exercise course is going to be starting very, very, very soon. It's going to be kicking off on the 22nd of January. If anyone's interested in that, check the link in the description. The goal is to basically help you regain your confidence and get an understanding of your back pain, as well as what's contributing to it and what's causing it. And in the program, the goal is to help you rebuild an active lifestyle. We're doing it in group format that we're going to do calls. We're going to do a Zoom call, and then on the opposite week, we're going to do Q&As. And really, I want to help people understand what's going on. And once you can understand what's going on, it's very easy to fix it. Now, alongside that, you have the course to work through, you have the exercises, you have the videos, you have the running program to help you build back into it, which can be done outside or in the gym. But really and truly, as I mentioned, it's all about helping people get an understanding of their body, improve the back pain, get rid of the back pain, and change their identity from somebody who is a sufferer of back pain to somebody who is now able to live an active, healthy lifestyle, or somebody who identifies as an athlete or a runner, or an active person, a fit person. And when we look at it, a lot of times when you're dealing with recurring or chronic back pain, our whole identity changes as we have to change what we do. And that's why I'm going to talk about on this podcast, I'm going to talk about how the stories that we tell ourselves and the stories that I've seen from my upbringing and from the people that I've worked with, and how that's affected their lives down the road. So to jump right into it, for anyone who doesn't know, I was born in and grew up in Clare in the Burn on the west of Ireland, and it's a beautiful landscape. It's a national park. It's excellent for hiking. It's excellent for cycling, and the population is very, 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 very low. In terms of the closest shop to me is about 10 kilometers away. So what we have around us is a lot of farmers. It's mostly a farming community. But there's people from all walks of life there as well. And there's a football field, we have a primary school, and then obviously there's a lot of people who work in the national parks living around. But the population, as I say, is very, very low. But it is a tight-knit community, and I was lucky to grow up in the pub and restaurant that's in the area. And through that, I obviously met loads of different people and different types of people. But in this podcast, I'm going to talk about two types that I met that came into the bar a lot, and the difference in mindset and how I feel that it impacted the way I think about exercise and the way I think about living life and living a quality of life. Because when you're living at home, when you're growing up in the bar, you're always getting people coming in who are talking about, obviously it's a great place to chat to people. I loved it. I loved standing behind the bar talking, leaning out over the counter, just chatting to people who are coming in on a day-to-day and in the night. But you notice different things and you pick up on different things. There's certain people that come in, and as you talk to them, especially because I was involved in exercise growing up along, and I was involved in boxing and football and all other sports, rugby and every type of sport, I would often get to the topic of fitness and get to the topic of health with people. And when you lean into that side of things, you see how the beliefs and the mindsets of certain people dictate their life, dictate the quality of life that they have. So for me, I notice a lot of people when I would say, do you walk, do you run, do you cycle, do you do anything like that? They would say, I can't because of my hip, or I can't do that because of my knee, or one, like my back is crippled. That was at night time. I noticed that more. Now you would get it in the day, but it was in the night time that I feel that population of people were in a bit more often. And it became apparent to me that some people started to blame things that happened in their past for the life that they had now, not realizing that they had the opportunity to fix it or to start working on it. And a really common one that I heard a lot, especially because a lot of the population would have played football with the local team, they often blamed football for the reason that their body was the way it was, where they were saying, oh, we didn't know what we were doing and we were training and this and that and the other. And I felt that that was a bit of a crutch that people lived off of, because in terms of the sport or the game of football, and anyone who's older who's listened to this will disagree with me on this, but it's just the facts and the stats that the game is much faster than it was before. It's a lot more explosive now than it had been before. So to say that what they've done before had more of an effect on their body than what it is now would be, it wouldn't be an honest representation of what's going on. Now, when people say we didn't know what we were doing, training wise and stuff like that, I think that a lot of people still don't know what they're doing, but they still get through it. And you don't have to be an elite athlete to know what you're doing, or you don't have to be an elite athlete to train. So I think that that's a huge part of it, is that when you have this narrative running in the background, it's very easy to attribute any issues that you have to very specific situations. And it could be that the other thing is that you could have injured your knee, you could have injured your ankle, or you could have injured your hip doing it. But you can't live by that narrative. You can't live by that story, because the body is very adaptive and it's very strong. If you injure your ankle, you don't live the rest of your life saying, okay, I tore the ligaments in my ankle, so now I can't run, or I can't hike, or I can't do things like that. Because the ankle's so strong, the body's so strong, it's all built around survival. And what it'll do is it'll adapt, and it will get you into a position that over time, when you give it a chance, it will start to modify itself and recuperate and recover, heal, and get back on your day. Okay, so there's other things that contribute to you having pain and tightness. It's not that the actual injury itself is still there 20, 30, 40 years later. It's more of the nervous system and how it reacts to it is a bigger issue. So as I said, it becomes apparent that a lot of people were blaming the things that they did in the past for the life they had now. And that was at night time. Now, it was all times of the day, but the reason I want to use that comparison is that during the day when I was working there, because it was a pub and restaurant, we would have a lot of people coming in who were cyclists or hikers. But cyclists specifically stood out to me because the cyclists were often a good bit older than the average person that was coming in terms of they were maybe 60 years old, 70 years old. And they were what would easily be described, or what was often described in the parish, as they were fit as fiddles. They come in, they drop in for a coffee or a snack, and then they'd head off again on their 100-kilometre cycle around North Clare. And it amazed me because when I was chatting to them, they always seemed to have a different energy about them. You know, they always seemed that they had a bit more pep in their step and a different view on life. And it's not that they didn't drink. It's not that they didn't indulge, because I would meet the same people at the parties in the nighttime or in the restaurant having a few drinks. That wasn't the case. It was that they approached it all differently. It wasn't something they had to do, the exercise, the cycling, the putting pressure on themselves to try get out and cycle at the weekend. It was part of them. It was something that they did as opposed to something that they had to do, if that makes sense. And when I was like, when you say covering 100 kilometers, for me that was like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know if I could cover 100 kilometers now when I was a young lad. These people were a good bit older than me and they were still doing it, and more, 150, 200k, 250k, a lot of them even. But for me, when I was chatting to them about it, I could see that there was a part of them that would be open to saying, like, they had a different view on the whole thing. That, as I said, it was a part of them. They were lucky to do it, is a lot of them described it. Oh, sure, it's, I may as well. That kind of idea. And when you got to the core of it and really talked to them about why they did it, it's because they wanted to keep an element of their youth and their body healthy and mobile as they were getting older. And then for some of them, of a lot of them even, they had grandkids and they wanted to be able to play, and they wanted to be a good role model for their grandchildren so that their grandchildren would have more of an active life as they grew up, and they would see that it is possible. And so when I really got down to the core of it, that was a lot of them did that for that reason, because they wanted to see their grandkids grow up, and they wanted to see how they wanted to basically continue living the life that they did, as they were younger, but with the attitude that there was nothing going to stand in their way. So there was always, the other thing is that when they came in, or when you talk to them, there's always a level of respect earned by other people who continuously worked on themselves. I noticed that when they came in, and they would come in, they'd sit down, they'd chat, people had a different way of chatting to them because they were in great shape, they were working on themselves, they were trying to improve themselves. And yeah, you could just see that there was an air around them that they were creating. So they also had a bit of a sharpness to them, a lot more. They knew. I felt that they were sharper, for lack of a better word to describe it. They were just a bit more. Yeah, their quickness, their wit, everything about them, and it was obviously to do with the fitness. You know, it was just, that's the way it was. When you get fitter, when you have better cardiovascular fitness, your brain is fitter, brain is healthier, and you age better. So there was a different mindset to live in that came around that. They didn't let age or their body become the restricting factor of what they were doing with their lives. And they often talked about, I did play football in the past, I did do that in the past, and I find that the exercise that I'm doing now is keeping me in the shape that I was in. So it always made me think, how did they become like that? What was the idea behind it? Like, why did I continue doing that? And what was the elements that were stopping some people who played football when they were younger? Because I didn't know any different at the time. What were the elements that stopped some people that were playing football when they were younger, and now that they have all these injuries and they can't do anything? But then you have these people who are did the exact same thing, but now they're fit and healthy, and they're out competing, and they're out doing long distance cycles, and they have great fitness, and they're sharp, and they're healthy. They look healthy. And I noticed that it was their mindset and their approach to life. Now, to go back to the other side of it, to look at the people who get caught in that mindset of things getting bad and only getting worse over time. I remember I was down at a local pub with friends, and it's a different pub now, and a guy walked in, because I was outside the counter this time. He was the same age as me, and he walked in, he was hunched over. Okay, he had his hand on his back, and he was kind of cropped up in the corner. There was an older crowd around him, and he was sitting down, he called a drink, and then after he did, the bartender, who was a friend of mine, came over, and we started chatting. And I distinctly remember him saying to me, I won't obviously mention him, but there's so-and-so, he's after crippling his back. And I said, okay, no way, geez, that's awful. And I said, what's wrong with him? He said, he's a bulging disc. It's desperate to see now, because, to use the phrasing that he used, he said, that's him for life. And I remember sitting there and thinking, man, that guy's the same age as me. Like, he's 26, I'm 26 at the time. It's a couple of years ago. And I had been through my course at this stage, but I remember thinking, like, how he's resigned himself now to a life of misery because he has an injury or a back issue. And it really, really, really stood out to me. I was like, it kind of flashed back the idea of, if that's the case now, what's this going to be like in a couple of years? And as I sat there, I remember sitting down and thinking, well, he hasn't told me this. The guy himself hasn't said this to me yet. So I remember thinking, how did my friend, the bartender, come to the solution that your man was now done for life? He was crippled for life because of this issue. And I started to think about it more, and I was asking him and just talking to him about like what he thought it was, or why he had that prognosis, or why he had the idea. I never made any comment yet about what I thought it was. I just kind of sat there to get an understanding of what was going on. And when I was sitting there and thinking about it and chatting to him, it was the past experiences that he's had, and the idea of hearing stories about people with bulging discs and the effect that it had on their life. This was a huge part of it. He himself, it's not that he went over and did an assessment and based off an understanding of anatomical structures and based off an understanding of healing and adaptation or anything like that. He just made that, his understanding was coming from what he had heard other people say, what he heard your man say himself, and then when your man said that, the reactions of other people around. Now, he was relaying to me what others had said in the bar. You know, this is the crazy thing, and it blew my mind. It's like, this young guy is after resigning himself to a life of misery, unbeknownst to himself, and based off his previous experiences and the stories he's heard about the prognosis of other people from family members who have had the same issue, he has now which you could say that it's also been reinforced by his peers, because a lot of them from the farming community, anyone who knows the farming community, okay, my family are farmers, so I can, like my father's a farmer, stuff like that as well. So anyone who knows the farming community overestimate the amount of exercise that they do, and a lot of people are still not in the best of shape. And I think it's an issue because when I was in college in UL, they were doing a study on it of the overestimation of exercise and activity of farmers, and it was massive. It was a huge overestimation, because the old days of farming where you were doing all the work and it was all a lot more manual labor has now moved more to an aspect of like using tractors and using machinery to get the work done. So it's losing a lot of it's losing a lot of the physical activity side of it. And if you couple that, okay, so it's missing the physical activity. You couple that with the fact that people obviously eat a lot in general, especially in rural Ireland. I have my own. I think it's very interesting how you go into a house, people are always offering you food. I know that's kind of a worldwide thing, but in Ireland it's a big push on making sure you eat and making sure you're not hungry and all that. And I do wonder where that came from. Is it from the famine years ago, or what drives that? But like, it's very hard to go into my grandmother's house and come out without eating something. And I think it's hilarious, but it's definitely, it's like a way of, I don't know, is it a way of showing love or a way of giving, whatever it is, but to not go too far off track. But when you look at that, a lot of them are out of shape. And when you look at people who are out of shape, they're more likely to have all these other comorbidities, and their body's going to react to things differently because of that. Now, to go back to this guy specifically, he got the diagnosis, he got the MRI, he got the prognosis of what he thought it was based off of what his family members in the past had, and then that was reinforced by his peers. And then if you couple that, this is the interesting thing that I think people forget about. You couple that with the fact that in rural Ireland, we have a tendency to catastrophize and to blow things out of proportion just for the sake of a story, to make a story more interesting. And this is a really common theme, I find. Don't let facts get in the way of a good story is a saying I often heard. And in this situation, you can see how this poor guy has taken the brunt of all of that mixed together. So he's gotten this diagnosis, and now he feels like at 26 that his whole life is decided upon about what the direction is going to be because of this diagnosis that he had. And in this situation, as I was saying, I could see him. He was sitting there. He had taken the brunt of it. And people may say, and this is something that people did say to me when I chat to them, why don't you go over and talk to him about it? Because they knew I was a physio and stuff. They knew what I was working at. My God, I've never been in a place without telling someone I'm a physio without them telling me their injuries as well, which is a gas one. You can't. The funny thing is, it's very hard to tell someone how to fix an injury in the 40 seconds that they ask you about their injury. So it's funny. I'm often just trying to give the most general advice to this type in this situation. It's funny, when I was younger, I used to ask physios the same thing myself, and I used to get general advice. I'm like, well, I knew that. So it's definitely a common thing, and I did it myself, so I can't complain. To go back to it though, in this situation, why didn't I go over and talk to him, or why did I not talk through what he could do, knowing what the actual prognosis was if he took the right approach to it? It's a really difficult thing to try guide people along the right path, and this is something that a lot of people may not understand, is that it's really, really difficult to guide people along the right path and change their beliefs, even if they specifically reach out to me for help. Like someone jumps on board and I'm working with them for 12 weeks, 24 weeks, or a year long period. Even in that case where they have gone out of their way to get in contact with me, to set everything up, to go through it all, it's still a difficult thing to try change someone's beliefs around what's going on. And it does happen, but it takes time. But the thing is that in this situation, if you question someone's beliefs, especially when they're surrounded by their peers, if you question their beliefs, it feels like you're attacking them. So don't, like, whatever about me trying to help people or guide people along a path when they have an injury and they've come to me specifically, going up to a guy in a pub who's down on his luck and trying to change his beliefs is a challenge. It's a challenge. And the thing is that when you question the beliefs, as I said, they become defensive and they'll put their guard up. And I've learned this the hard way in the past. I don't need anyone as well. Like in that case, you need to be careful because even if the intentions are good to try help someone, if someone feels like they're attacked, they will attack back often, or they'll get extremely defensive and they'll hold that grudge, and it's not worth it. So it's one reason I love the podcast, is because I can try to help you without going after specific beliefs or you specifically as a person. It's very hard for you to take offense to what I'm saying on this right now, because I'm just speaking on the way it is and giving my opinion on it and that side of things. So I'm not targeting anyone specifically, and that's why this medium I have the opportunity to discuss topics and beliefs in more detail without having someone feel like I'm attacking them specifically. It's one of the reasons I love the podcast. So in his case, it's more that with time, hopefully he comes to understand that as he gets out moving and as he gets out working, and it'll really need, to be honest, it'll need a bit of a change of environment or a different perspective at the right time when he's in the right place. That's what he's going to need to try to help that. But it does go to show that to finish up on this podcast, the stories that we tell ourselves and the mindset that we have towards our body and towards aging is going to have a huge impact on your life. And you really, really, really need to be careful about what you blame, because what you blame today will become a massive obstacle down the road. And I heard a great quote before. It was, if you're looking for what has the most power over your life, look at who or what you blame. These issues, whether it be a bulging disc or a back injury, because back injuries themselves, when you hear that somebody has had that, you straight away have a certain prognosis of what that's going to be like, and you have an idea of what that quality of life is going to be like for that person. Now take that and put it onto you if it was your situation. The same thing goes, but this time now you feel like you don't have any control. You feel like you've lost all control of your body, and you feel like you have this way of living. So you will start to adopt certain patterns around that way of living, and your identity will start to reform based off of that. So that's why when I started out dealing with back injuries, it was all like I focused a lot on the mechanical and working on the strength and stuff. But then the thing would crop up a couple of weeks later again, and I'd have to think of a new set of exercises. Or someone would say, I stopped doing my exercises. It's like, people think that if you give people 3 exercises that they do them for the rest of their life and they're going to be good. But you'll build a good tolerance to them, and then you're going to have to change things up, and you're going to have to look at other factors, which is really important. So if it was only that easy. But it does come to say, or it does go to show, I should say, that the issues become crutches and the problems develop into bigger and bigger and bigger issues when you look at 10 years or 12 years or 15 years down the line. You'll find yourself overweight, you'll find yourself negative about life, negative about your body, and slowly but surely losing the quality of life that you have, because you have resigned yourself to this way of thinking. You've resigned your body to a way of being. On the contrary to that, if we think about our body and how it has a huge impact on how we feel and what we do, and we get an idea of, if we work on things, we can improve them. If we're in fight or flight mode all the time, or protective mode, we're going to have a lot more pain and tightness just as a response. It's natural, because that's how the body protects you. So having the mindset that, changing your mindset about, okay, I have an injury, I have had this problem, the problem has been there in the past, but I can fix it because the body has the ability to adapt to its environment. And that's why we're here today. Don't forget that that's what evolution is overall. When you look at it, it's our ability to adapt to our environment and prosper in our environment. Having the mindset that, knowing that if you put yourself in the right position and in the right environment, you can fix it, you can improve your situation, then that gives you so much control, so much power over your life. It's crazy. I've seen it. Like just this week, I was posting about this on Instagram, where I had a couple of clients that I've been working with for the last while, 3 specifically, who, when I asked them about their yearly reflections, they had mentioned that they had completely gotten over the chronic injury, which is a massive, for me, it's hard to describe. It is hard to describe, because it's the goal. It's like one of the huge goals is to try help someone to understand that the chronic injury that they have, or the issue that they have, there's other factors to it and it can be fixed. And to get a chronic injury in the first place, you have to have so many obstacles against you. You have to have lots of recurring problems. Your whole mindset has to change. Your whole identity has to change to actually get a chronic or recurring injury. So much has to happen. So when I look at it and they come to me and they say that they feel like they're over it and that they feel like it's gone, that's, for me, I love it. Like, I really do. And then for them to turn around and we say, what's the plan for the next year? And they say that they want to change their identity to become an athlete, to become someone who's pushing on, where you have overcome all these challenges. You've been down, you've had the journey of things being tough and difficult for you to get over. And now you're changing your focus and you're going to put yourself in the situation that you now face challenges head on. Like, that is, I couldn't ask for any more in that situation. That's a complete identity shift. That's a complete change of life. Maybe people don't understand it as much, or maybe you do understand it, but that's an absolute change of life. Because you're now deciding going forward that you have the life that you want and you're going to continue chasing it. You're going to continue improving yourself. You're going to continue working on yourself. You're not going to let anything restrict you. That's, for me, is, as I say, it's the biggest thing. And I love to see it. It really goes a long way. So when we are looking at the mindset, and when I say you don't want to age with this mindset, the mindset you don't want to age with is that the body is fragile and it breaks down, and that the things that happened to you in the past are going to define your future. Instead, we need to look at it that everything can be worked on, everything can be improved, and we deserve to have a good quality of life. It's so important. We deserve it. And if we can start to lean into the things, and we have a compass that we're working towards a certain direction of a better quality of life, you'll come to understand that aging stronger is the goal. You'll come to understand that the positivity and encouraging yourself and having a positive mindset around your body and what you can do, and if you put the time in that you can fix it, that's the ultimate thing. So that's all I'm going to talk about today. I wanted to highlight that because there were two stories that cropped up when I was journaling during the week about how I noticed that when I was in the bar, certain people had resigned themselves to certain lives based off the injury that they've had in the past. And based off of what has happened to them, they have decided that they will live the rest of their life out because there's nothing that they can do with it. The realization that blaming your past actions and your current circumstances is going to hinder your opportunity for change. So you need to try to break that. You can't blame things in the past for what happened. You need to just look at what you can work on and how you can improve it. And the adoption of a mindset that everything can be improved, and that you're deserving of a good quality of life, is an absolutely perfect way to start. To finish, as I say, if anyone is interested, definitely check out the Back Pain Back to Exercise program. I'll put it in the description of this podcast. You just hit the link. It'll bring you straight to the page. We have a cohort. There's a group going to be starting very, very soon. Right now is still the early bird prices, so jump on it. And it will be for the next week. There's €100 off. So definitely look at getting involved in that. Especially if you're looking to kick this new year off with a bang. I wanted to put it a little bit later in January so people can settle, try out there. You may have tried out a few different things in exercise, but now you want to have more of a structured approach to it. This is definitely the right one for you. And we've had a lot of success with it so far. So I'm just looking to push on, develop, improve it, find new ways for it to resonate with people and for it to help people and for it to get people back on track. And as I said, you finish off by completing your first 5K, or you're getting back into running, let's say. And then after that, we will talk about the whole identity change and how we can become a better version of ourselves and what we need to look at then going forward for the year and what's a different way of living, how we can point the compass in the right direction. But that's all from me today. Check that out. It's going to be, as I said, link in the description. Back Pain Back to Exercise. If you know someone who would benefit from that, I would love if you could pass this on to them. I'd also love if you could share this podcast with anyone who you think would be interested, or even on Instagram or with any friends or family that you have. It goes a long way in promoting it. Thank you so much for listening. I will chat to you all again next week. If anyone has any questions, do not hesitate. Just write to me on Instagram at The Mobility Tutor, or you can email me at info@themobilitytutor.com. I will chat to you all again next week. Happy New Year, and have a good one.